Good morning. I'm excited today to talk about Madrid and am super stoked to be back and talking about one of my favorite cities and a place that I think is like entirely overlooked, or at least used to be, less so now with so many big hotel openings that have happened. But we're going to go through a lot today. We're going to focus less on the hotels, more just sort of highlighting a couple hotels in each neighborhood and more like why Madrid, why stay in different areas, what to know about the city. This is the capital of Spain, but people have often talked way more about Barcelona than they do about Madrid. And we want to tell you why. Okay, who should be going to Madrid? I think everybody. But let's talk a little bit more specifically. People who are into art. There are world-class museums here. The art is phenomenal, both in terms of more contemporary art as well as sort of more classic. Food is off the charts. I think obviously everybody knows that Spain has excellent food, but Madrid in particular, really great places to eat, whether you're going for something very high end, like a Michelin starred restaurant, or more just the tapas, the churros. And then culture. This is Spain, Spain. So this is the capital of Spain. This is the culture center of Spain. I love Barcelona, but Barcelona is also Catalan culture. This is sort of the true Castellano. And when to visit. Prepare yourself if you are there in July or August. It is hot, hot. Like think maybe not like Vegas in August hot, but it is quite hot. So for those who are going in sort of the peak summer months, plan their itineraries around doing things kind of earlier in the day or later after siesta time, because that prime afternoon time will be very, very hot for walking around. So spend your afternoons in a museum or napping like a good Spaniard. Spring, the shoulder seasons are lovely. Spring and fall is where you get really nice weather, but not quite so hot. And the winter is winter. Like I think people sometimes forget that Spain is like gets real winter. If you are there sort of November, December, January, February, it's cold. You're going to need a coat. It is also it's high altitude. So I think if you ever heard the rains in Spain fall mainly in the plains, that it's Madrid is very high altitude. So it is chilly in the winter. How long to stay? I think 3 nights is typically what people are booking, but there's the opportunity to stay longer, and we're going to talk more about that. You're flying into the Madrid airport. The Madrid airport is very close into the city. If you're jumping in a taxi, you're talking like 20, 25 minutes to get in. There are subways, metros that connect the airport as well. It's a very easy airport to get in and out of, I think, compared to a lot of other places. What is not easy about it is transferring. This is super, super important. It's something like a 4 hour layover, which anywhere else would sound, oh, that's terrible. Like you'll end up eating up a lot of that with the transfer time because you land, you often have to change terminals, you have to go through passport control, additional security. So, not an easy airport to transfer through, pretty easy airport to get in and out of. Things to know. Do not need to rent a car. Please don't rent a car. You will not use it at all. What's coming? Nobu, which seems to be coming everywhere right now, which is exciting. But then the Brac Madrid. This I'm pumped for because EVOT collection, if you haven't checked out their hotels, look at it. They've got Brac, they've got Sinner in Paris, they've got some other ones, and they are really gorgeous. I got a chance to pop into the Nolinsky in Paris, which is part of their collection while I was there in December. I love it. I'm so excited to see this brand going farther. So very happy to see Brock opening. Let's start with Sol Gran Via, which is sort of like a combination, Asturias and La Latina. We're lumping these all together because this is kind of the heart of the city. If you think of Sol is actually the center of Spain. So if I were like a good tour guide, I would be explaining to you how this is like all the roads branch out from here. When you look at this and you're like, this is a crazy, like what this makes no sense. Where's the grid system in Madrid? Ain't no grid system over in the old part, but all of the streets came out from Puerto del Sol. This is also down in La Latina, the oldest part of the city. So really you get the feeling of sort of those older areas, the back lanes, the sort of crooked streets, super, super fun to explore. What are you doing while you're here? Well, Plaza Mayor, which is like the main plaza, it is yes, it's a tourist trap. Yes, you're going to pay way more for your like glass of sherry sitting in one of the cafes, but go. It's just so incredible to see. It's a great place for kind of an end of the day pre-dinner drink. Everybody has to go and do it once. It's not a Times Square. It's like, I don't know, like a historic Times Square. Go by, see that. There's great food markets. You can walk west, or at least I'm thinking of it west, this way over to the Royal Palace, which is really neat. There's also an armory there that a lot of kids who are like into sort of the military stuff and like learning about the battles of the past can go and see. the cathedral, all of this. And then El Rastro, which is Madrid's most famous open air flea market. It is every weekend. It is very fun. It's for everything. It's like a lot of tchotchkes, some antiques, but really fun to just go wander around and explore. So lots to do in this area. And then an absolute ton of places to eat and drink. One, I'm going to just highlight Casa Lucio. This is one of the oldest restaurants in Spain. There's nothing cool or new about it. It is old school, but like presidents and prime ministers and royals, when they come and visit, they generally go into this old tavern and have this very traditional Spanish food. So that it's really fun to balance some of these new hip places. There's lots of cool rooftop bars with also something a little bit more traditional. Now, speaking of something that's very cool, The Edition. We love this brand. I love seeing it open in places. And I think it's, yeah, well, I know it's doing really, really well in Madrid because it was nice to have something come on the market that was very contemporary, very cool, but also upscale. Because I think sometimes what we've seen in Spain is like the really kind of hip hotels tend to be a little bit more the lifestyle brands, not the really elevated brands. So this has done really well for two reasons. One, what I just said. The other is the outdoor pool. So it has a great swimming pool. Edition is maybe not normally what you think about booking a family into. I have booked my own family into the Edition when my kids were in Madrid with their dad, and I did it because of the pool. It's hard to find a hotel with a good outdoor pool in Madrid. This is one of them. It is great. Then the Four Seasons. So Edition is going to be still pricier than some of the other ones that we're going to cover, but less expensive than Four Seasons. Four Seasons was building in Madrid for a long time. It opened with a huge splash. We are so excited. They made a completely over the top, spectacularly stylish hotel. And they did it in an area that, I'll be honest, when they first said, we're going to build in Seoul, I was like, oh, why? Like, why would you choose that neighborhood? Turns out they did what they do best, which is make something amazing and actually really like transform the area around it. So it went from being a little bit touristy to much more elevated. The design here is remarkable. I think if anybody is worried that a Four Seasons feels, I don't know, stodgy or like cookie cutter, nope, not here, not in Madrid, and actually really not in any of the hotels that they're opening now. So one for people who love like luxury, who love the brand, and who love actually something with a lot of design and flair to it. So big fans of that one. Now we're moving into the next neighborhood over. So we're leaving Seoul, leaving Asturias, moving over into Malasaña and Chueca. This is when I lived in Madrid. This was the neighborhood that I would go out in. So this is where I'd go out to eat. This is where I'd go out to do the shops. This is where I'd go out for drinks. It is very cool. It was like one of those, think of a little bit like, you know, New York, kind of Chelsea, Lower East Side, something that was like, you know, in the far past, like slightly dodgy. And like, then it became really vibrant with like cool cafes and the LGBTQ culture. And like when Madrid, I was actually in Madrid when they legalized gay marriage and just the huge parties in the street here. It is just, it's such good energy. This is a neighborhood that you will definitely be wanting to check out. It tends to be a little bit younger, a little bit more nightlife. So one to be checking, and Malasaña and Chueca are kind of like right next to each other. They technically are two different neighborhoods, but I kind of think of them as one because those are the ones where you're going to be walking around to the hip places. You're going to be bar hopping. You're going to be checking out record stores. You're going to the theater. This is all of the stuff that you're doing. Everything is smaller here. It's not, and we're going to talk later about Salamanca and the shopping here. These are the smaller brands, smaller boutiques, smaller cafes, and great food. It has always been a place that you can go in. And again, some of these are very new. A lot of what we're talking about is sort of like the newer, hipper stuff, but you'll also find some really cool older places that are there that like predate the hipster revolution that happened to Malasaña and Chueca. So just great spot to wander around. If you are hungry and you come into this neighborhood, you will never leave hungry. Tons of cocktail bars too. Again, we're going to talk about like timing for Madrid and Spain in general later, but just know everything is late here. Do not go into a cocktail bar and expect it to be the nightlife to be like up and running at like 9 or 10 p.m. These places are going to get really full at like midnight. Everything is a little bit later. So great places to go out for drinks and also dive bars. Sometimes it's the super elite cocktail chic. And then sometimes there's the dive bars. You want to explore this neighborhood. There aren't so many hotels here. There are some. The reason that we're not highlighting them is I don't want to overwhelm you with hotels, but look for some like Roommate is there, other ones that are a little bit less expensive. Okay, so now we're moving over into Salamanca. So we're kind of moving here towards I think it's the east now. I think of it that way when I'm looking at, if you were looking at the map, we're moving towards the right. Seoul being over here, Malasaña and Chueca here. Now we're moving into Salamanca. Salamanca is on the grid system. Suddenly everything starts to make sense. So this is a quote unquote newer area in Madrid. It's still very historic. I would say it's sort of akin to the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So if Malasaña and Chueca are like Chelsea, Lower East Side, and Seoul and Asturias is like, I don't know, like a super ancient Times Square, but like not in the bad way, but in the sort of city center way. Now what we're moving into is sort of residential and upscale. Again, great dining and certainly not stuffing anyway, but just a little more elevated. The streets are laid out on a grid. There are amazing shops and amazing restaurants here, as well as you're moving into, there's a few of the museums that are here, and you're next door, sort of next door, neighborhood wise, next door to the area where you get into the real sort of museum corner. So it's all walkable from here. Like Madrid in general, pretty walkable city. I was very surprised to find out that there is also a Tracy Anderson here. Let me tell you that when I lived in Madrid and I joined a gym, there was a smoking section. This is, people would just be like, they'd be working out and like having their cigarettes. So Madrid, wow, you have come a long way that we now have a Tracy Anderson in Madrid. So you can get your workout. The other thing to know too is that it's really easy to get to the Retiro Park from here. It's easy to go for a jog around the Retiro to explore. Such good food. I think sometimes when I say this is kind of the Upper East Side of Madrid, people can think of it as being like, oh, well, like here, if you're on the Upper East Side, you might come down to Soho to go out to eat. Not the case there. There's lots of stuff that's very cool. I'm going to highlight 10 con 10, one of my favorites that's in Madrid. Definitely, again, not the newest, not the hippest, not like the most famous, but a really fantastic place. Lots of fun stuff to explore. And one of my favorite hotels, the Rosewood Via Magna. Like with Four Seasons coming in and opening something that is super stylish and super cool, Via Magna pre Four Seasons was kind of like the nicest, more contemporary hotel that existed in Madrid. But it wasn't like, if you're a real design junkie, this wasn't going to check all the boxes. So I was constantly telling people like, hey, it's like a really well-run hotel and I really love it. Rosewood came in. We know Rosewood nails design every single time they do anything, and they did it here. The rooms are totally spectacular. This is on Castellana, which is sort of the main avenue. It is removed up. It's quiet, but you are right, just around the block from getting to some of the amazing shopping. Has some nice views from some of because it's a more contemporary building. It's not a historic building like some of the older ones. So you have some nice views as you get up above the buildings around you. Beautiful garden, and just a place where you'll see locals in the lobby, like meeting up, having meetings, like sort of, it's kind of a power scene. I'd say actually with all of these hotels it is great one, and they do a fantastic job with families. For those who don't have a Rosewood budget, don't worry. There's the Bless Hotel. Bless, it sounds a little bit silly when you say it. It's Bless, it's in all caps. It's a really great brand. Don't sleep on this one. They also have one in Ibiza that's worth checking out if somebody wants to do a little bit of both. So great hotel. Actually, somebody from our team was just there. She was sort of wondering what it was going to be like. The feedback was 100% positive, and definitely a notch down in pricing while still getting the great location. So they're with part of leading hotels of the world too. Stamp of approval, a great one to know about. So Chambéry. So now we're moving even more into residential neighborhoods. So Salamanca is actually where I lived when I lived in Madrid. Chambéry and sort of, it's still central, but it's more residential, but with lots of shopping. Chambéry gets even just a little bit quieter. And again, not removed. All of this is walkable, and there's subway stops and all of that, but just a little bit for people who really don't want to be in the thick of stuff. Again, you're like in a historic area, but you've got a little bit more layout here. Easy to walk to, great food. I keep saying great food. It really is. I guess there's just like very good places to eat everywhere in Madrid. You don't have to go to one neighborhood to find the nice restaurants. And it feels a little bit kind of like they're living there. Great place to explore. It's a little, sort of more leafy streets with trees. Yes, there are some museums here. This isn't the big place to go for museums. It's more just exploring, and especially if you had a longer time there. We've included some great places to eat in your neighborhood. So this is a good thing to share out if you're booking at, say, the URSO, because it's charming, because it's a smaller brand. So what you're getting here is not a big brand. It's also not big brand pricing. It's Definitely the rates have gone up, but it's still not going to be the same prices. No, it doesn't have like huge amenities. Yes, it's got a fitness center, it's got a restaurant, but it's all a little bit smaller, but feels very charming and very individual. And what we're seeing right now is just lots of requests for hotels like that are something that's a little bit different. Contemporary. One of the rooms I love to book that people really appreciate has a really big terrace. They have a few terrace rooms, and that's great for the warmer months. Somebody can sit out there and have their coffee. But fantastic hotel. And then here's another one that you never may have heard of, but it's actually part of Marriott. The Santa Mauro it's on a residential street and it's an old palace. And you actually the rooms are spread between various buildings. There are huge gardens in between. When David Beckham moved and joined the Madrid soccer team, or Madrid Football Club, as they would say over there, that this is actually where he lived while they were finishing up a house because it feels super private and super quiet. Yes, you might have to get into a taxi to go down to the museums, but it is lovely. People really, really don't know this one, and I love to show it to them. Also, recently went through a big renovation, so the rooms are looking quite spiffy. Okay, moving back now into the center. So Paseo del Arte in Retiro. Retiro is the park. So you're looking at this here. This is the middle of the city. When we were writing the script of like who should go to Madrid, we put something in there like nature lovers. And we're like, well, it doesn't really make sense because it's like it's a city, but actually the park is so huge. And this is a park you will see on the weekends. People are out in it. It's families, it's couples, it's joggers, it's everybody because it's this huge sort of patch of green that you can get out in and enjoy. You have the lake with the boats, you have jogging trails, you have playgrounds, all of that. And you have also hotels that are nearby. So who should stay in this neighborhood? Those who want access to the park. Again, Salamanca is pretty close too. And also who want to be very close to the museum. So the big three for the museums, it's the Thyssen, it's the Prado, and it's the Reina Sofia. The Prado being kind of the equivalent of the Louvre or the Metropolitan Museum of Art, if I were comparing it. The Reina Sofia being more contemporary. And if you see Picasso's Guernica, which is huge and which is about the Civil War in Spain, really compelling. That's in Reina Sofia. And then the Thyssen, which was a private collection of just some of the most incredible masterpieces that you're going to see. Also, you have the book fair here. It's just, there's something very sort of intellectual, I guess, about this area. I love it. Also, not a lot of nightlife. So if you have people who are a little bit sensitive to noise, this is a great area to put them in. This is not the zoom zoom of Seoul. This is not the party of Chueca. This is going to be a little bit more quiet. Now, in terms of eating, drinking, there's a lot of places. These are some of the really sort of well-known old school and fancy places. Know that the garden at the Ritz, the Mandarin Oriental Ritz, is a total power scene. So even if you're not staying there, it's expensive. Even if you're not staying there, just go and have like a drink and a tapa there because it's worth seeing. Also, make sure you get dressed because people look good there. Like you're not rolling in your sweats. Okay, let's talk about this hotel. This hotel, the first time I saw it, like probably 16 years ago, it was beautiful. It was like a historic masterpiece and it like felt a little bit like your grandmother's house. Everything in it is historic. They couldn't change not a piece of carpet without government approval because it is a landmark. It desperately needed upgrading, but it was so special. People would still come stay there because it was so lovely. What happened is that after a lot of work, Mandarin Oriental came in, took over, kept all of the historic elegance, but also upgraded it massively. And the feedback is like, it's a jaw dropper. It's amazing. Like this is like the rebirth of one of Europe's most spectacular hotels. Similar to the way that people are talking about the Carlton in Cannes. Like this is just something coming back to life that everyone was waiting for it to happen. And yay, Mandarin Oriental, you went and did it. So again, even if you're not staying here, go in and check out the garden, have a drink there. And then the Westin Palace. I wanted to throw this in here. It's kind of a little bit, not directly across the street, but just across the Castellana from the Ritz. And it's a historic building. It's not the Ritz, but it's like a 4-star version of it. And they actually deliver like pretty great experiences. They're good with kids. They've got a lot of rooms. It's a big step down in pricing, but it still has a lot of history. I mean, it was built by King Alfonso. It's older. It's got great architecture. The rooms are more contemporary. There's less of those historic details, but it's a really good one to know about. And I've had families stay there many times because They looked at, they really wanted this one and they wanted to be close to the museums. They wanted to be very walkable and just decided, oof, I like really can't stomach the pricing over there. So good one to know about as an alternative. All right, a few honorable mentions we're throwing in here that are worth considering. The Urban Monasteries. This has also a rooftop pool that's very cool. The Hospice in Salamanca is very close to the park and if you haven't looked at the Hospice brand, it's Spain. It's I think only in Spain. All sort of designy hotels. The Intercon is a little bit farther out. It is an InterContinental. It has been renovated. It is really well priced. So I like to have those in my back pocket because, sure, we all wish that everybody could stay at a Four Seasons or a Rosewood or a Ritz all the time, but they can't. And you know what? They shouldn't if they can't afford it. Now, let's talk about what to know about Madrid. Tipping. Tipping is like my pet peeve about places because I never can figure out what I'm supposed to do anywhere. It's smaller here. It's not like a 20%. It's, kind of leave the change behind. Real Madrid is the soccer team. It is a big, big deal. Going to a game is really fun. Going on a stadium tour is incredible. So make sure that you look into that ahead of time. It's not easy to get those tickets. Siesta tradition. So it's not actually that all of Spain goes home and goes to sleep, but this is the sort of this is the hours that they keep. And you should know this, that after lunch, a lot of shops are closed. Shops and markets, they shut down. So you're not going to go to the food market at like 2 p.m. Everybody is shut down. They're having lunch. Isn't that civilized? It's so nice. So do your more of your sort of shopping and you're checking out those kind of shop, like whether it's food market or shops outside of those hours of 12 to 3 because they will be closed. Also Sundays, almost everything closes. Sundays are still very, very quiet. So plan to do your sort of your shopping and your markets and some of your cultural stuff outside of Sundays. Hours. So typical lunch, 2 p.m., typical dinner, like 9 or 10. You will see people coming into a restaurant on a Friday night at, 11 or midnight, especially if it's like kind of a cool spot. Everything is just much later. So it sounds difficult, but it's fine. You just kind of you wake up later, you have breakfast later, lunch later, you get on that system. I actually think for families traveling, it makes the jet lag a little bit easier because you can sort of use that sleep in the first day to get you on the right schedule. And then dress code. It's a more formal city. Like think of this more like Paris or Milan. Like people dress nicely. It's not New York City where we do, actually, myself included, walk around in sweatpants all the time and think this is a totally normal way to go about our days. Spaniards dress up a little bit. So a little bit more formal. That doesn't mean you need to be in heels. Obviously, don't be, especially walking the old cobblestone streets. Sneakers are fine. But when you're going out to a restaurant, dress a little bit more nicely. You can learn some Spanish phrases here. But yes, English is pretty widely spoken. Safety, very safe city. Pickpockets love it though. So be aware. I just tell people, it's like, keep your fanny pack on the front to just like, that's the kind of thing that you're going to have as crime in Madrid. It is a very safe city otherwise. And then we've included a few of the classic dishes that you're going to want to try in the tapas bars. Festivals and celebrations, there are a lot of them. And so you can plan around them. Do know that summer, again, there is the fiesta in August, but a lot of Spaniards are leaving Madrid for vacation in August, particularly early August. So the city is going to be much quieter and have less locals around. It is very hot. And then here's our day trip. So this is a few. No one's going to do all of them, but just a few that's worth knowing. So Toledo is probably the most popular. It's like very, very easy to get to on train, or they have buses that run down there too. It's this fortress and this castle. It's all pedestrian and you're walking in around this little town and exploring it. Very cool. Segovia for the Roman aqueduct, Escorial for the monastery, and then more and more Salamanca, not to be confused with Salamanca, the neighborhood, Salamanca, the city, and this is more of a city, is really well known for its Renaissance architecture. These are all places that are easy to reach by public transportation. Again, you don't need a car to be getting around. Now, what about Greater Spain? Very few people are coming into Spain and only staying in Madrid. So what else are you adding on and why? I think this is super important. Barcelona. It's like the other capital city of Spain. There is a high-speed train that is going to get you from Madrid to Barcelona. Almost everything, by the way, from Madrid, once you're here, is like a super easy flight if you do have to fly. But if you can take the train, it's going to make life a lot easier. So city center to city center to Barcelona. Barcelona is on the coast, so you can have like a day on the beach. It's not a beautiful beach, but it's a city beach. So combining those two, Ibiza and Mallorca, sort of the Balearic Islands in general. Ibiza is the most famous, so we've pulled it out. People are talking about a lot because of the party scene. Yes, that's there. That is only part of the island. The rest of the island is super relaxed. It has spectacular beaches. The rhythm of your day in a place like Ibiza is not like boom, boom, boom party unless you want it to be. I've been there multiple times with my kids, and you are sort of getting up and you're going to a different beach club and you're hanging out there and then going to lunch somewhere and then going out to dinner. And your dinner can be very relaxed. So Ibiza, very popular and not what people think of it as. The Balearic Islands in general are just a spectacular destination, and that includes Ibiza. Mallorca now has nonstop flights from New York, which has really changed how many people are excited about going there because they don't have to connect. So you can have somebody fly in, do Madrid, do a quick hop over to Mallorca, obviously flying, it's an island, you're not going to swim there, and then fly direct home from. So that saves that sort of connection on the way home. One thing I would mention about these destinations is that these islands get super busy during the summer. The check-in lines that I've seen in the Palma airport in Mallorca in the summer are some of the craziest lines I've ever seen in the world. So just know the airports are really busy and you're going to want to have that. Formentera for beaches. When people say they want to go to the beach, Formentera has the most gorgeous like Caribbean style beaches. To get there, you're going to go to Ibiza and then you're going to have to take a ferry across to get to Formentera. Much more relaxed, sort of very small hotels that are there. But this is kind of the island beachy. Mallorca, I say, is kind of Tuscany on an island. It's more these rocky coves and like great vineyards and historic towns. Ibiza and Formentera are more the beachy ones, and then Menorca is the undiscovered one, sort of smaller Mallorca. Marbella. If you want beach and you don't want to go out to the islands, Marbella is the super chic destination down south. Again, you're going to fly from Madrid into Malaga, and then it's 30, 40 minutes driving. Gorgeous hotels there. This is very upscale. Also beach, but this is not the Mediterranean. This is the Atlantic. The water is lovely and warm, but not just kind of that clear blue water, but really easy to add on to your time. And you can also add in Seville in between. Take the high-speed train down to Seville. So again, this is like you don't need to get on a plane to do Seville. This is that sort of Moorish architecture, lots of history. This is Andalusia, where flamenco comes from, where sherry comes from, where bullfighting comes from. So very much sort of a lot of what I think people envision as traditional Spanish culture. And from there, then move on down into Marbella to do your beach time. All right, you guys, it was good to be back and talking about some of my favorite spots. We will see you then. Bye.